Welcome to Victorious Voices. A pleasure to have you here, Jimmy.
Man, thanks for having me. It's love, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, just your presence coming here, your energy coming in, connecting with the staff members, and it has a different flow, right? Different type of energy here.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. Last time I was here, I think it was 2020, 2021 during the pandemic, and I think you guys just had one suite. So, man, it's inspiring. It's beautiful to see that you guys are little by little taking over this entire building. So
yeah, for sure. And I remember clearly the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were still bringing in services, right? At the same time, the tragedy and the catastrophe that was happening during that time, the isolation, we were able to take advantage of it and kind of focus up the work.
Yeah.
And that was the resilience contract with the county and the Board of State Community Corrections working with the adults. So we've been able to grow as an organization, been able to grow as credible messengers, staff, and connect. But we'll get that in a minute. Tell us about yourself. Introduce Jimmy.
Yeah, so my name is Jimmy Figueroa. Born and raised in Oceanside. Been working in nonprofits, specifically in Oceanside and throughout North County since like 2004, 2005. So I've been in this space now, working with the community, serving the community almost for 20 years now. You know, I started off just as a young adult, trying to give back to my city, trying to give back to youth that were going through some of the challenges that I went through as a youth. And I linked up with a nonprofit based out of North County called Encuentros Leadership, which was a nonprofit that worked with Latino boys to help counteract the dropout rates within North County. And at that time, they used to host these annual events. And I got connected with them because after I got my GED, I went to Maricosta Community College. Not knowing what I wanted to do in my life, but I knew I wanted to do something. At that time, a lot of my boys and relatives my age were going to prison or, just losing their life or battles to some of the things that we see in our communities. And I saw that this nonprofit had an opportunity, they had an event coming up, and I was like, hey, like, I can help with like putting the chairs out and, whatever it is that you need, a lot of like just like janitorial or like prepping the event. And if you want me to like chaperone some of the youth coming to the event, I'll do that as well. And, there was mentors in that program, leaders, Latino leaders who saw something in me and they were like, yeah, we can use your help for that. But we actually think that, you can, you have a story to tell. We see the passion. And little by little, they just started mentoring like my professional career, what they saw that started planting seeds in me and what they saw the impact that I can have in the community. And, I went to Maricosta Community College not knowing what I wanted to do, but ended up, getting a bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley and then getting the opportunity to really work in the community after I got my degree. Then went to law school. And that's when we connected, when I got appointed to the North County Gang Commission back in 2017. And you guys were doing all of the grassroots, really planting the seeds with the county about the credible messenger movement, which it didn't even have a credit. That didn't even exist. Credible messages wasn't even a thing. Or it was a thing, but it didn't have a name to it, right? The branding wasn't there. And
the name was Community Mentors.
Community Mentors, right? And you guys were really doing that work down here in San Diego and providing a perspective to the county and county leadership and probation and systems about, hey, there's been people out here doing this work for decades, but we've never had the partnerships that we need to really have a deeper impact. And based off the work that you guys were doing, we were able to receive that contract out in Oceanside to run the Credible Messenger program out there. And that's how you and I connected, almost like, 2017, 2018. So it's been a minute now.
Yeah, so that's when I'm probably about 5 years out the system, reentering back into the community. And my process was just engaging with the people. Community engagement, 3 years straight, every Sunday, clockwork. We didn't have no funding, so we'd pass the hat around, who could donate for a barbecue. And we would take these kids to first time places, Aquatica, bowling, going to a park, going to a beach that they had never been there before, right? Not having that experience.
Right.
And so after building the relationships for 3 years straight, first and foremost with the community, we began to build the relationships with probation and public safety. And then here comes Ruben Austria, Clinton Lacey out of Washington, D.C., New York City. And so we went through that process of receiving the Technical Assistance Award for 6 months straight. And so what that award consisted of was public safety, Dorothy Thrush back then. We had judges, HHSA, county representation. And how can we build this credible messenger program? Like, it started with the 6-step process, right? And at the end of it, it was closing the document with the budget, program, outline, and it went to the county, right? And so the county board of supervisors, right, they give that discretion to pass it on through. And then that's where it went to North County.
Yeah.
It was in this contract with VCC, correct?
Right. That was the fiscal agent. And so Vista Community Clinic, along with probably, which is now Lifeline Services, but it used to be North County Lifeline, and Interfaith, those are probably the top 3 nonprofit organizations in North County, kind of like, say, San Diego, you know how it is down here in the South. And so a lot of times when those large county contracts come out, they're written in such a way that only the top nonprofit fiscal agents can actually be competitive for them, right? At least that's how things were done a decade ago.
Yes.
And so when that contract came to North County, just looking at the contracts, like, well, this only 3-4 nonprofits are going to be able to actually compete for this contract. But I think for me, hearing about what the scope of work that this program or this contract was going to do prior to VCC getting it was me being on the North County Gang Commission at that time. Ruben Littlejohn, who was Assistant Chief of Probation, Ruben Lewa, he came and he presented on the Credible Messenger Movement, which I had never heard. I don't think no one in North County had ever heard about it. We didn't know about it. And it pretty much just said in the city of New York, this is what they did. They found that when they partnered with the different boroughs, formerly incarcerated community who were now football coaches, faith-based leaders, community leaders, when they partnered with them, they significantly saw the recidivism rate drop amongst the youth on probation, which to us is like, well, we've always had those leaders in our neighborhoods who give back and people trust and they establish relationships, but they were doing it as, they're in the trade. They come home from, serving their time and they get a job in the trades, as a carpenter, electrician, or a lot of them, they have these 9-to-5 manual labor jobs. And then in the evenings when they can, they give it back through their church or they're giving back through their kids' sports teams, or once in a while they'll come and speak, to an after school program. But they never had the funding or the support from the systems to do it. And matter of fact, sometimes the systems made it very challenging for them to give back. There was a lot of barriers to be able to do that. And when we heard the presentation about the Credible Messenger program actually being a partnership, because if that's one thing, I think these programs have been happening for a long time. It's just the partnerships and the funding and the connection to systems. When I mean like the juvenile justice system, the court system, big agencies and entities, that wasn't there, especially not in San Diego, right? And not at above a grassroots level. And so when we found out that probation was going to do this and that they wanted to hire 8 formerly incarcerated gang members from the city of Oceanside, because the program was going to come to Oceanside, because they said, yes,
That's where the need was at.
that's where the need was. And they said based off of the how many youth were on probation, and the lack of programs for those youth, right? And so for me, being from Oceanside, to me, it was like, this just has to be done right. Because if you introduce something like this to any neighborhood that's never heard of anything like this, they're not going to be able to understand it. And if we don't get buy-in from the neighborhoods, it can fail, And so for me, it was always about how do we introduce this to the community, let them to provide an understanding of what it is that we're trying to do and who we're trying to help, and making sure that we also had the right representation within the city of Oceanside to be mentors, because we have a very diverse community. But the program was to serve youth on probation that were deemed high risk by probation, that were gang documented on GSU. And historically in the city of Oceanside, our gangs have been, you know, the representation of the gangs are based off of culture and ethnic background, and so it was important to me that our mentors reflected that. And so I helped with the recruitment, not thinking that I was going to eventually run the program, just thinking that I was going to help put it together and I was going to kind of try to coach it from like the sidelines. But as I got more involved, I said, this just has to be done right. And so for me, you know, it was a lot of it when I first started getting into nonprofit work, or even when I first started going to community college. It was always with the vision of hopefully one day when my friends came home from prison, I would be able to provide them opportunities to service our community. And all of a sudden, here was this program, you know, 13 years later, essentially coming to the city. And so, yeah,
And on our end,
then
a culture shock for myself too. I'm coming straight out of prison.
right,
I get off probation 6 months after. Mr. John McCartney's my probation officer, tells me, you know what, mandated 8 classes per week. At first, I'm like, oh hell no, that's too much, but I embraced it.
right,
And so then I got involved with the community. But what did that mean? Engaging with the community first, and then when Ruben Austria out of CCFY, Clint Lacey out of Washington D.C., DYRS come down, they put us all in a room together, right? And so we're talking about grassroots organizations, individuals with lived experience, individuals with backgrounds, violence as records, which is a red flag, right?
right.
And so my first thought process was probation, law enforcement. Now I'm collaborating with them. Like, how's the community going to see me?
Right, right.
How's the community going to engage the trust factor that maybe has been broken for decades, and the policies that are in place to the community to feel like that? So I used to walk into these rooms and I didn't show it, but deep down, like, man, like, okay. So I took a leap of faith of just going in there, and each system is different. You know, you got your police department,
Right.
probation, and your sheriff's department, federal.
Right.
And honestly, sometimes they don't even get along with each other, right? There's a lot of
At least here, that's what I've experienced. You know, I feel like entering this space, because of the after school program work that I had done, I worked closely with the Oceanside Police Department, but it was with specific teams within the police department, the neighborhood police team, right? And so the neighborhood police team is usually officers that are from the city who are now police officers for the city. And their job is to go to the different neighborhoods and after school programs and build relationships. They're at the community events. So who asks to be a part of that team, right? It's people that like, they're from here and they want to give back. And so I worked with those teams, but to work with the probation department at first, I had limited experience, but I was surprised by their leadership at the top level on how restorative they were in San Diego. And I don't know the entire history of how they were, but I'm just referring to, we're in 2017. The leadership that was in place at 2017, they were looking at it and they would say things publicly like, hey, we tried certain things in the 90s and early 2000s and we got it wrong. And now we're trying to try something different. And we were a part of that. And I'll tell you right now that I'll be the first to say that that wasn't the best practice. But here we are now trying to try something new. And to come into a meeting and they're starting off the meetings with that approach. At that time, I'll tell you in 2017, 2018, as far as law enforcement goes, probation was the most restorative minded, trauma informed. They were ahead of the curve.
They were ahead of the curve, but you know who had a big factor in that was public safety. Dorothy Thrush.
Yes, at that time, yes.
So she was that. I used to go to all these meetings, and she was very quiet. She'd have a notepad, and she was really hard to read, bro. Like I would have
She wouldn't have a lot of expression. Yeah, I remember.
no expression, no communication, just like really getting to know the process and going to probation and making sure that they're going by policy and making sure that they're doing their job and uh, putting these programs into place and having a lot of questions, a lot of questions, a lot of questions. And so I don't know how the back end, how that system works with public safety, but I believe public safety here in San Diego County is responsible overseeing probation, sheriffs, and police department. And so she was a big advocate. And so the advocacy that we did within Central Region, the City Heights, Southeast area, you guys get the contract. So
We benefited from that advocacy that you guys did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, oh, damn, they went over there, right?
Yeah.
But of course, I'm like, I want to embrace it. I want to support it. And you were the right person for that job, bro, during that time.
I appreciate it.
Because like you said, you got to like connect with the community. You got to connect with the homies, the former gang members, the gang members. Like, how's this going to work? How's it going to conflict? Are they going to embrace it? Part of their culture? Are they going to be able to do the right thing and moving forward? Right. And so you were able to create that process and that system in place so that when it did come out to Central Region, the benefits were, say, San Diego, Youth Empowerment, Project Aware. And so we were able to learn from y'all too, right?
Yeah.
Into that process. So that county contract through resilience allowed us to create a machine,
Yeah.
right? You got to have the insurances. I remember putting myself as a guardian for the background checks. That was me and Reggie. Me and Reggie, we're like, okay, I will be the guardian. You gonna be the guardian. 4 months later, they're like, nope, not accepted, right?
Yeah.
And so it actually took us like, because VCC was already a system,
Right.
right? And so say was our fiscal, but it took us like 6 months, 7 months just to get it started.
But I think, man, and I think one of the things that partnership did, or I've always, I'm very publicly always shared about the advocacy that was done down here that Oceanside benefited from. And eventually because when we first got the contract, it was just to service youth, high-risk youth on probation in the city of Oceanside. And then it eventually expanded to all North County, right? The work that you all did planted the seeds and pioneered a movement for the entire North region of San Diego to be able to have these services. But not only that, employment for formerly incarcerated, system impacted former gang members that wanted to get back to their community but felt like they can never, they wouldn't be accepted. And it brought hope to our area where now hundreds of kids have gone through the resilience program in North County. Families have been, impacted in a positive way, but just the lives of the mentors, I think it is, again, goes to a testament to the work that you all were doing, not even thinking, you're just thinking, okay, we want to, grow what we have going on here. But that leadership and vision, and I think I want to say the courage to step into those rooms back when you were like, man, I don't know these people.
Yeah.
The fact that you did that opened up the space for the mentors that we have in North County to have the positions that they have now. And I'll say this, that I remember when we first got the contract, I said, man, the folks in Southeast are going to be, or San Diego are going to be a little upset that they did all this work and Oceanside got it, right? But you all were the first to say, hey, we've done these trauma-informed trainings. We've done the restorative practices trainings. We would love to come down and do it for your mentors. Because you knew, like, if it works up there, it's gonna work, and it's gonna come down here. And so, and how impressed our mentors were to see you and Reggie and hear y'all speak and present. Because at that time, our mentors were just coming out, right? And so they're just coming out, and to see folks at that time, I think you've been out 5 or 6 years, and the things that you were doing, it inspired them. And to see them now 5 years, 6, 7 years later, they're doing that for others that are coming home now because they were able to see you and Reggie. And some of our mentors were locked up with Reggie, or they, I think and it was also beautiful to see the connection between, at least at that time, between Mid-Cities and Southeast and Oceanside, and being able to now, like, I feel like, no, we have a lot of love between our mentors that do this work, because it is still a tight-knit community of those who do this.
Tight-knit community. The other day, we put a credible messenger convening. I messaged you, hey, Jimmy, I need all the phone numbers of contacts, but I need to connect with them. And I sent little text that we're going to have a credible message. And then it was a beautiful, like, convening mentors from Oceanside, Escondido, Central Region, Southeast, right? And all of us coming together. And so the impact of the work that was the foundation has led to programming in elementary school,
Right.
middle schools, high schools, working with families, the adult reentry population, gang experts doing the work, relationship with public defender's office.
Right? Yeah, it'd be huge.
That's huge. To be able to go into these institutions and working with our kids that are being trained as adults, right?
Right.
707s, the adults themselves in the different county jails, to be able to go in there and be a guide and navigator to their process. But not only for them, their families, their mothers, their guardians, their tias, whoever it is that their family member is.
And I think that's the bigger impact of it, right? Like the credible messenger movement. I told the mentors when we first started this work, I said, listen, we're going to lose some kids. That's just the fact. We're working with, one, probation has deemed them high risk because one, they've either reoffended a lot of times or they come from, assault with deadly weapon, attempted murder. Like their charges are some, they're usually violent or serious offenses, but not saying that people are defined by their charges. It was more me saying we're getting them at 17. So we're not getting these kids like, at 12. At that time, it wasn't, we're not getting them at 11, 12. We're getting them at 17. They're active right now. Well, yeah. And so the odds are telling us that we're going to lose some kids because we may get a kid that joined our program and he's only had 4 interactions with you and then something pops off, right? So it's not saying that we're not going to be impactful, but the chances are we're going to lose some kids. And but we're also going to be able to alter the trajectory of a lot of kids' lives, right? For those that we get the opportunity to spend more time with over time, if they're able to stay out and we have access to visit them and we connect with them, or you never know where someone is already in their process. We've had kids that went in there and like they came out already not being able, feeling like they couldn't trust anyone because all of their co-defendants snitched on them, right? So they already had a certain feeling. And so like, however, you have other kids where they come out and it's like, I remember being in restorative circle groups and the kid telling the mentors, I'm never going to be like you. I'm never going to stop gang banging. Like, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is who I am, right? And the mentors are like, being able to love a kid through all that because understanding that this kid did time in Kearney and that time, like, Kearney and East Mesa is a lot different than, the institutions that our mentors and that you have been a part of. And so when you hear a kid say that, sometimes it's like, okay, this is their reality right now. And that's okay. We're going to love them through it. We're going to love them through their process. One thing that they're always going to know is that they know where stability can be found. They know where trust can be found. And that just takes time, but it's a very difficult thing to do. And it's not for everyone. I think we've all seen mentors come and go who get frustrated with their mentee's process not being ready or the disrespect that sometimes comes. And the youth, they don't even really know you. So they're not really disrespecting you personally. It's just they're going through a lot. They have a lot of trauma. And so, you're challenging that. And so
making them uncomfortable.
Right. And so sometimes this isn't for everyone. We've seen mentors come and go, and not that the intent wasn't, heartfelt. It was just, man, it's a tough job.
Oh man, this is a tough job. This is a tough job.
Yeah.
But when you find that individual that has that passion and credible and can de-escalate violence and that cultural proficiency, connected, right? The word out there in the community, mentors. I was telling you earlier about our credible messengers, the outdoor walkie-talkies and connecting with the community, and they see this kid coming down over here that has a conflict with this kid.
They can already see it.
They can already see it coming before it starts, right?
Yeah.
And so on our end, on the back end, what I admire about all the staff, because the challenge is the technology and putting all the case notes and all the data,
The admin stuff.
the admin stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's always been a challenge.
The other day I seen the mentor right now. I've been seeing him faithfully for like right there in this little corner of the desk with, 1, 2,
But we've seen that. Yeah.
So I started and I'm like, this right.
Yeah.
But seeing his process evolve into now we have the Kroc Institute being able to come in and do some evaluation and some case studies and help us with our systems and program evaluation from an outside entity that specializes in that field. SDSU has been able to provide us some work with the youth that we serve from the schools that we work with. I would just receive the report yesterday from the increase of violence, the explosions from last year at Hoover High were at an all-time high. Compared to this year, Now the explosions have been way, way, way less, and the decrease of violence has came way down, right?
Yeah.
But that came with a lot of effort, man, and a lot of like dedication to it. Cause you put a room in, and you're aware of this, like resilience, similar. You get 40 kids all together, and 3 groups don't like each other at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
That could be a recipe for
Yeah.
conflict.
But I think, I remember, man, like when we, even to this day, when you, like you say, you bring those kids in, is respecting that and knowing that that exists, right? And so, not putting those kids in a situation where they have to feel like they have to respond to disrespect, or putting them in a situation where something can pop off, right? So if you know that you have those 3 different groups, the mentor should already be aware that these groups are coming. So you have mentors, already like, hey, when they come, I'm gonna, I'm gonna be the host to this group. You be the host.
2 on either side, 2 on this,
That's right. And then it's up to the mentors to stop the disrespect, so a kid doesn't have to, right? Because the big thing that they want to do is come in with the hat, the socks, and everything means something, right? Like, and you're not gonna know this unless you know your community, because every community is different. I can wear something in this neighborhood, whether it's a team or a brand, and it may not mean nothing here, but you wear that to a different city, and now you've disrespected half the group, right? And so you have to understand what those are, and that's why the credible messengers are so important, because they know that, right? And things change too. Like some neighborhoods will change hats because they know that GSU gang suppression has picked up on that, and so now they're changing. So but you have to be aware of all that, and so we would always have kids that would wear something and just do it to be disrespectful. Purposely, right? And if a mentor doesn't address it, then the kid's gonna have to address it, and now you got issues, right? Now you got issues. And so I think that that's always very important. But imagine if teachers were trying to put that together and they didn't know about the hats and the socks or whatever, right? Like now every recipe for disaster. Now everyone's triggered.
everybody's triggered.
Everyone's already triggered, and so it's just that's why and even when we keep saying credible messenger, when we were first bringing this to San Diego, none of us wanted to use the word credible messenger.
No one wanted to.
Because it sounded like snitch, right? It sounds like, wait, we're going to be working with police and probation, and we're going to be credible messengers. Like, credible messengers to who, right? And so it took us a while to establish, our presence in the communities together in San Diego County, and that's why we took on the word community mentor.
Yeah.
And then eventually, once the branding of credible messenger grew across the country, because at that time it was just on the East Coast, that meant nothing to the West Coast, And so now you see credible messengers in the Bay, in LA,
Everywhere.
but San Diego was the first, right? We just didn't take the name. We were like, we're cool.
It got territorial a little.
Yeah. We were like, we're cool off of that. But I think that now it's grown more. But man, it started with the seed that you helped plant just 10 years ago. So imagine what the next 10 years are going to be like. And also like even working with law enforcement, I'll say probation was at the senior level the most restorative, but it was still a challenge working with the probation officers on the ground.
Yeah.
I'll say probation was at the senior level the most restorative, but it was still a challenge working with the probation officers on the ground, because they weren't as restorative. The more restorative is that it was your challenge working with the and so even trying to build those relationships took time, right? Everything takes time. Building relationships takes time, right? And then getting Oceanside Police Department, because that's where we started first, to build relationships with them, because now we're asking our mentors to build relationships with the officers that arrested them and put them in prison, and then build relationships with their former probation officers, right? But it takes time, right? If we're asking these kids to come and do a restorative circle with people that they have active beefs with, like, as adults, we have to start by doing that with those that we had tensions with, right? And so it's been a beautiful thing to see the partnerships between the credible messengers and law enforcement at all levels. But it does take folks in leadership like yourself, Reggie, Timothy Jackson, the different mentors to say like, listen,
Man, there's so many
yeah,
lived experience organizations.
now they're all everywhere. So they're everywhere. They're everywhere, right?
Someone comes out of prison, that I want to put them out.
And now they got, but what happens is that once they see and they hear, because word gets back inside that there's groups out here doing it. Once you see someone doing it, it's more possible because you've seen it now, right? And because now I keep saying you because, but there's the pioneers of this movement a decade ago, helped plant something beautiful throughout the county that now everyone just sees it as possible.
Yeah, they think I'm a lord. I just gang consult with the police. Like I'll get a phone call and, man, I need you to do this, and then I'm like, hold up, like I need to go through the process and connect with the lawyer first and get approval to see if I could.
But they see it's possible now, and I think that's the beautiful thing. And to me, I don't see it as like I've always been on the mindset of like, man, with our grassroots and nonprofits, it's not competition. Like we need more of them. Like we don't need less. We need more groups because I'll tell you, I've been in a space where a youth calls me and I missed their call because I was with my family, right? Or I missed their call because I was with another youth or whatever, right? And then that youth is very upset at me because like, man, I needed you and you didn't answer.
Yo,
And so one of the things that I've shared with like, as we continue to have more groups come into fruition is that we need more because a youth that has gone through trauma and is battling a lot needs an ecosystem of support and mentors around them. So if for whatever reason you're not available, they got someone else to call right after that. And and someone will show.
that saying I've heard you say a few times, a lot of times actually, is the African.
Oh, the African. Yeah, if the youth are not engaged into the village, they'll burn it down to build it for them. And I've always been a big proponent of like, man, we need more mentors. Like it's not about one group. One group can will have an impact, but
We need a lot.
we need a lot. We need a lot.
We need a lot. And then, what we need to do a better job of is telling the story,
Yeah.
the impact, the data, the podcast, the social media, getting the word out there.
Yeah.
With testimonies, what's worked, what's the challenges moving forward, because the community needs to be advised. Example, Prop 36,
Right.
right? I get it. Like businesses getting robbed and everything, they're getting, frustrated.
Right.
But the community is unaware of the solid programs that are out there that are doing good work.
Yeah.
And having results doing it.
Yeah. One thing that I shared during that time, because I was obviously campaigning, running for office during Prop 36. And, as someone that was running for city council, I don't have an impact of whether Prop 36 went into law or not, right? I'm running for city council of the city of Oceanside. Prop 36 is a ballot measure for the state of California. But then I got asked by my opponents where I stood on Prop 36 because they knew that was going to be a way that they could attack me, right? And so I came out and during debates or whenever I was asked, they asked me what I thought, and I said I'm not supporter of Prop 36. And I was like, and imagine that, man. I'm running for office, and all of a sudden, like, so I don't get attacked. I say I support it, but now I'm going to be attacked by everyone that put me in this position. You're going to call me. All the credible messengers are calling me. And they're like, what are you doing, man? Like, and so
Like Jimmy,
so if I can't be true to who I am,
that's right.
and the things that I do, throughout my career, then it's like and then all of a sudden as I'm running for office, I can't, for me, I looked at it as like, all right, well, attack me then, right? But one of the things that I share is that the data, right? In the past 10 years, crime has gone down in our neighborhoods over the past 10 years. And so even the thefts, everything has come down in the last 10 years. But they were like, they were showing these commercials, crime is,
We need to do, but
we need to do better. And then I said, okay, well, if this passes, because it did pass,
and about 800 people have already went in because of that.
but I said, okay, what's going to happen to our funding? Because that funding is now going to go back into incarceration. And that funding, indirectly or directly, is what helped fund the credible messenger programs in San Diego County. So now we're going to lose funding on the prevention side and even on the reentry side because now we're funding incarceration again. And so I was looking at it more from the fiscal impact, but also just thinking to myself, like, crime is down. And one of the things that I've shared over the past 10 years, when I hear like, because I've been at these gatherings throughout San Diego County when the DA brings all the law enforcement, and they'll say crime is down, and they're taking the credit. When I hear crime is down, I think, man, our mentoring programs, our after school programs, our mentors on campus, along with our police officers and our law enforcement, but that's the collaboration of us all working together, right? And so when I hear crime is down, I'll reach out to the after school programs like, hey man, like you're killing it. Like, did you hear that crime went down this year by 5%? Like a lot of that goes back to you because our mentoring programs, our part public after the school programs are huge. Yeah, man, they're huge. And the mentors on campus too.
Yeah.
Right. So like if I can have a conversation with two groups that are beefing second period, then maybe hopefully come 4 or 5 p.m. things don't pop off because we now sat down for the past 2 hours, in that morning.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that again, for me, the data is important, but it's also understanding that like our groups in the neighborhoods are very effective, man.
Oh, man, very so effective. So I've heard you mention city council and Oceanside, but when you introduced yourself, or you probably even had a chance to introduce yourself, this new position, man, that you just got, District 3,
Yeah.
Tri-City, Oceanside, what's the other district?
Yeah.
How's that feel? I heard you're running for mayor next. What's going on, man?
Yeah, man. So, and in 2000, this past election, I was elected as city council member for the District 3 of Oceanside, the city council, that's that council district. So, in the city of Oceanside.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother.
Man, that's big. I was rooting for you. Me and Timothy were texting. Is he gonna win? I'm letting you know, like, okay, what's happening?
Timothy was getting hot during the campaign because they were taking a lot of the Prop 36 was the one thing that they really my opponents used against me. And the crazy thing is, like, my opponents were coming after me. They were just using that as a way to like scare those who the constituents, right? The people in my district from voting against me, but they weren't really coming after me over that. Like a lot of my opponents are part of what is like the gentrification movement in the city, and they're more for like, let's develop the city and let's push people out, right? And I'm over here running on the platform of like affordable housing and keeping people housed in Oceanside, which is contrary to their business of what they're trying to do for the city, right? So they use the Prop 36 as a way to attack me. And so they would send out these mailers, and they found old pictures of me like in tank tops, like mad dogging, right? And then and they posted them on mailers, and they say, crime's gonna go up with Jimmy in office, and they had beef on the police, like things, and smash and grab pictures on there. And Timothy, who is a credible messenger, who was the first credible messenger we hired in Oceanside, and who's done a lot for youth empowerment. He's just a great brother, and he's one of the special ones. He was getting more upset than me. Like he was calling me, and he was like just hot when he would see these mailers. And I was like, man, don't worry about it, man. Like I'm out here knocking on doors and talking to residents. So if they have any concerns, they can just ask me, and I can explain to them, like, when it came to Prop 36, I'm just one vote like everyone else in the state of California. So it's not like me running for council, I have a direct impact over that. But I also was sharing it more from like, hey, crime is actually down. Like that is inaccurate data that they're using to push this. And also the long-term impacts of that can really impact the public safety of our communities, because we are going to reallocate funding away from our reentry and preventative services now back into incarceration, right? And if folks that are being incarcerated are not getting the services that they need, then the cycle it takes us back to the 90s, right?
Picks it back to the
And so but anyway, despite all that, like for me, I District 3 of Oceanside is the district that I was born and raised in. I was born in Tri-City Hospital. I lived in the Tri-City community the majority of my life. We've never had a council member in District 3, or I think in the history of Oceanside that I know of, that's from Tri-City. And I think a lot of times So Tri-City is called Tri-City because it's sandwiched in between primarily Vista. So it's on the border of Oceanside and Vista. Parts of it are towards the border of Carlsbad, but it's mainly Oceanside and Vista. And so it's 3 different school districts. You cross one street, you're in Vista. You cross another street, you're in Oceanside. You cross another street, you're back in Oceanside. And so it ends up kind of being like out of sight, out of mind. And we've always had like challenges in the community and in the parks and stuff like that. And I think for me, one of the things that really touched my heart was when I was knocking on doors in the Tri-City neighborhood, and I would have like abuelas and abuelos come to the door who have been living there since the 80s, and they would tell me I'm the first person ever running for office to knock on their door. That no one had ever knocked on their door, you know? And even when I first started campaigning, I was told by people that are very involved in politics, they were like, man, we really want you to win. We know that you have a heart for Tri-City, but don't spend too much time there because that community doesn't vote. So you need to go knock on the doors of the community, like the affluent communities, you know, you need to go knock on those doors, spend all your time there because they vote. And then once you get in office, you can help Tri-City. And I was like, man, but then what's the point of this? Like, if I can't activate or at least try to empower my community, then I don't even like, this is not like, that's what I'm doing it for. And man, we spent so much time in Tri-City. We launched our campaign in Tri-City, which no one had ever done before. We did community cleanups. Even when I was going on the weekends, because I spent a whole year knocking on doors, even on the days that we were set to walk in the affluent communities, we had the group meet in Tri-City just so the residents could see us out there in the morning, you know, like gathering together. You know, we would meet, everyone has coffee, we're talking, they see like the campaign stuff. And then we would drive to those neighborhoods, but we would meet in Tri-City just to keep the energy there, just so people can continue to ask questions. And then whenever someone walked past, or, you know, you have people in the neighborhood, we're talking to them, you know, just to be a presence. And I think for me, that was the proudest moment because Tri-City came out and voted, man, and that power put voted, and I thought we wanted to. They said they weren't gonna vote. They get how they voted, but they. And my question to that was always not my question. My answer when people would tell me like, "Oh, they don't vote," you know, I was like, "No, they don't vote for you." Like, you know what I mean? They'll vote for me. I'm from this is where I'm from. Like, I have like 40, 50 relatives in that neighborhood, you know, and so a lot of people wasn't even like, I know him. They were like, "Oh, I know his mom, or I know his tia, I know his tío, I know his cousin." You know, and so like they had that connection. And I think for me, it's always been like, hey, once I'm in office, now you have someone that you know, and we can move things forward and we can address the issues. But also now you have someone that lives back here. So, you know, when things pop off or there's challenges, you don't have to go to a city council meeting to address that because I'm already aware of it, you know, and we're going to work on that. And so my goal with that was to show the other districts in Oceanside because there's a Tri-City, not specifically, but like figuratively, there's a Tri-City in every district. And the word is about those neighborhoods is like, oh, they don't vote. And so we tend to not get representatives and council members from those neighborhoods because that's the word. And so I hope that I inspired the other districts and other people in the districts to show them like, man, if Jimmy can win with Tri-City, then I can win with this neighborhood. Because
And so how's the mayor like work? Oh,
the mayor's on the entire city.
for just the city or the county?
For Oceanside, for the city.
Just for the city of
Yeah.
Oceanside?
So Oceanside is the 3rd biggest city in all of San Diego County.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't even know that.
Yeah. So San Diego is the biggest city, and then it's Chula Vista, and then right behind Chula Vista is Oceanside.
Oh, wow.
And so those are the 3 biggest cities in all the.
So Escondido, they have their own
Yeah.
council. They're
Right.
separated.
Right.
Okay.
And I think Escondido might be the 4th biggest city in San Diego County. Okay. So 2 of the biggest cities in all San Diego County are in North County. It's Escondido and Oceanside.
Okay.
But Oceanside is, you know, we're geographically, it's a huge place, and we're right next to Camp Pendleton, but also our population, we're right behind Chula Vista. And if you factor in Camp Pendleton, we're probably above Chula Vista because everyone in Camp Pendleton, all those military, they do life in Oceanside. They go to the grocery store in Ocean, you know, everything's in Oceanside. Like,
On my left, you're right there.
yeah, and they do life in, like, they go to the gym in Oceanside, they're at the parks in Oceanside, they're at the beach, you know, and so, yeah.
So you're paving the way for what are you thinking about going for mayor for Oceanside?
That's next. That's always been, I think, a long-term goal of mine, and not even now. It's not even a long-term goal. It's a more, you know, shorter-term goal. our mayor in our city, she's from the east side, so she's from the Pozole community.
Yeah.
She just got reelected. It was a hard campaign, and I've told her, I said, when she's ready to step down, I plan to, step up to that position. And so, but right now with her in office and me there, like she's someone from the east side. I have, obviously my roots in Tri-City, but because of the work that I've done in the communities, I'm connected to the other neighborhoods in Oceanside too. And so,
You're the right person for the job, man.
man,
That's just bottom line. I'm glad that Latinos, Mexicanos are stepping up to the plate, taking initiative, because we have a culture of like not doing that, not using our voice and being secluded and isolated, and that goes in with politics and business.
well, sometimes it feels like we can't step into those spaces because we haven't seen it done before, right?
Right.
And so my goal is hopefully with this, there's other kids in the neighborhood that are like, damn, I remember when Jimmy ran for office, I can run for office. Just the way that people are coming out of prison, they're like, damn, Arthur's over here, like Arturo's really doing this youth empowerment. Like I can have my own youth empowerment.
Just like Reese is doing this media, they're gonna be like, man, I want to do that podcast, I want to do that media.
I think for me, like, we talked offline and I shared this before, like in Oceanside, man, like our Samoan community, our Black community, Mexican community, Filipino community, even like our, just, we have different, like various smaller communities too, but like we really have, grown up together. And so one of the things that really like, man, made me want to cry.
Man, they love you, man.
They love you. I got love from Oceanside, man.
They love you.
Yeah, man.
All the credible investors, Joel, Timothy, all them guys, they got your back.
Yeah, man. And I think it goes back to like, just seeing like we're family, right? And one of the things that happened shortly after I got elected, we had a community meeting with our Samoan leaders in Tri-City, and because Samoans and Mexicans in Tri-City have always lived next to, like, literally, like every other garage is like a Mexican garage and Samoan garage. We all use our garages, like those are families, and we're gathered there. And so like, we had a meeting. It was a community meeting, and it was a panel of our Samoan elders in the Tri-City community sharing the history about when they first came to Tri-City. And a lot of them, our Samoan community came in through the military. And then back in the days, almost all the communities of color before Oceanside, a lot of Oceanside was rural. So before it was developed, a lot of our communities of color lived in the East Side neighborhood, the Pozole neighborhood. And that's one of the reasons they say it's called Pozole, because it was a mixture. It was like a blend of all these. It was a soup of all these different cultures. And then folks started moving to the Tri-City area. But man, they asked the elders, like, well, what's one thing? After they were done talking, someone asked them, like, I was the only person that wasn't Samoan in that meeting, right? And they asked them, like, oh, what's one thing that we can do to move like the neighborhood forward now in 2025, right? And the first elder spoke and he said, well, I think one of the things that we can do to really move the neighborhood forward is to really get behind Jimmy, because he's the first council member we've had from this area. And then the next one said that, and the next one, and I'm like, man, here I am, like the only Mexican in the room.
I think I seen the picture,
Yeah,
but the video.
But to hear our Samoan elders, like, and to me, like, that really, like, it really spoke to what I guess, like, since I started making changes in my life, what my life mission has been to really unite people, and to hear that from them, like, really meant a lot, because it's like, I understood what they were saying. And I think that they've seen my heart for the community, and to establish that trust, it takes a lot of time.
Takes a lot of time, man. And, Jimmy, thank you for being on this journey with me, this journey of healing and doing everything in our power to empower and build healthy communities with individuals that have experienced the worst trauma you could think of, right? From the bottom on up, like, and just supporting that population, being present and showing love and connecting and building relationships with them in this journey, and building other credible messenger organizations. And now you're in the District 3, Tri-City.
Well, my district actually is big, man. I probably have the biggest district in North County, like space wise. Like,
Okay.
so my district goes. I actually have South Oceanside, which is on the coast. I get part of the beach. So like from the beach all the way to the borders of like Carlsbad and Vista. So my district's everything's that's the 78 highway in the city of Oceanside is pretty much my district. Yeah, so it's,
That's big. That whole district there, District 3.
District 3, yeah.
Tri-City.
So where Tri-City Hospital is, Maricosta College, South O Beach, the DMV in Oceanside, Scripps. I got 2 Walmarts in my district, just to tell you how big it is. You know what I mean? It's like Walmarts don't like being next to each other, but I got 2 Walmarts and a Target, man. But I don't like being next to each other, and so just to show you how like how big
wow.
it is, yeah.
Wow, yeah. Man, that's awesome. So thank you.
Nah, man. Thank you. You really appreciate you. But like I said at the Youth Empowerment Gala, man, like you're like the OG to the OGs right now, you know, in San Diego County. And to like, it's always an honor and a pleasure, because the roots that you planted and the seeds that you planted when you came home has allowed North County and Oceanside, you know, to be able to, for us to be a part of this credible messenger movement would have never happened without you stepping into those rooms that you felt uncomfortable to step into, and then using your voice to share with systems that this was a need in our community. And because of that, hundreds of families have been touched in Oceanside. And so thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jimmy.